And that's when I started working on a tool called Sales Compass, which failed massively. Let's explore this, let's see how close we can get to realism, and then we'll come up with how it can be a business later. It was so frustrating. It was like, okay, neural voice is a better way. It can just do this, and there's no hold time. You can just have the conversation and get what you need. Reach out to anybody, family, friends that might know high net worth individuals. You just need to get yourself out there. To start with, your pitches are probably going to be bad. We've seen so many customers and investors, as soon as they have their first conversation with it, their mind goes wild with different ideas of how it can be used. So back in June of last year, we ended up going really viral worldwide.
This is the Leeds Business Podcast, and I'm your host, Phil Fraser. Before we start, I have one simple request. Please hit the follow or subscribe button on the app that you're listening on. Two letters are dominating business at the moment, A and I. But what is AI? And more importantly, how can it help your business? Today we speak to Jeremy Smith, founder of Neural Voice, about his AI business, how it came about, what it can do, and the stresses and strains of raising the funding for it. But before we speak to Jeremy, let's speak to Victoria.
Hi, I'm Victoria from Neural Voice. Please feel free to ask me anything about our voice AI assistant platform.
Hi Victoria, how are you today?
I'm doing great, thanks for asking. How about you? What specific information are you looking for about Neural Voice today?
Tell me about Neural Voice and AI.
Neural Voice is an AI-driven voice technology designed to enhance customer interactions. It delivers human-like conversations, understands context, and integrates with existing systems, streamlining operations. What challenges are you facing in customer communication that you think AI could help with?
I'm just about to speak to Jeremy on the Leeds Business Podcast.
That sounds exciting. How do you envision AI enhancing your discussions on the podcast? Are you looking to improve audience engagement or streamline any processes?
And now let's speak to a real person. So let me introduce you to Jeremy Smith, founder of Neural Voice. Hi, Jeremy.
Hey Phil, how you doing?
I'm great. So the whole wide world of AI. Give us 30 seconds on how you got into AI.
30 seconds. So how I really started was just from a childhood fascination. Like, I'm a big sci-fi nerd. Everything you see behind me is all like Star Wars and sci-fi memorabilia. And I remember being about the age of like 13 and on my computer playing with what was called Cleverbot, which was kind of a very early version of ChatGPT. You type to it and it would type back like a real person, but it was a robot. And that kind of fascinated me, and I've followed kind of AI as it made its growths in different markets. And then when Gen AI really started taking off back in the 2019, 2020, I knew I really wanted to work in it somehow. And then when the boom happened in 2022, I was just like, okay, this is my chance. I have to work in this industry however I can.
Right. Okay. So before you got into AI, what employment-wise, what were you doing?
Yeah, so a range of different things. So my very first job, I worked out in Las Vegas. I'd done a few bits in the esports industry just as part-time freelance work because I was a big avid video game player. I still am, but I loved the esports scene. And a company that I was working for just got an investor in who was based out in Las Vegas. He came to the UK and I just messaged him saying, can I have a chat with you, get to know what you do? And he invited me to go out and work with him in Vegas for a summer. From there, I went into university, studied finance, and then did a master's in marketing. And from there, I went into a sales role. I kind of changed during university what I wanted to do. So before going to university, I thought I'd go into game design, esports, then decided I wanted to be more on the business side, really liked finance, became fascinated with the 2008 financial crisis and was reading and learning everything I could about it. Ended up getting an internship at a hedge fund in London during university. And that's when I kind of realized that life isn't for me. So I thought, okay, I want to go into marketing, and so I joined a sales role for a marketing automation company that just got its Series A fundraise and loved it. Fell in love with how sales worked and fell in love with managing sales teams. So went quite quickly into managing that team, and then left for a French business that was scaling up in the UK and created their sales team, their go-to-market strategy for the UK. And then after a bit there, that's when the Gen AI boom started taking off. So it's like, okay, time to jump ship and focus on this. This is where I want my career to go. So that's in a nutshell. Finance and marketing and sales.
Okay, fantastic. Now you've mentioned Gen AI a couple of times.
Yes.
Now, bearing in mind our audience is not as techy and not as nerdy as you, you might have to explain some of the phrases as we go through. So Gen AI, what's that?
Sure. So you've got different strains of AI. AI has existed for years and years and years in different formats. So social media recommendation algorithms are forms of AI. Gen AI is a different strain. The kind of simplest way to look at it is it's something being created from something else. So with ChatGPT, you write something, you get a brand new output that's probably never been written before, and it's based on tons of learning data. Same with image generation. You type something, you get an output. So it is AI that is generating something. And that really took off kind of starting in 2016, 2017 with the release of an academic paper called Attention is All You Need that was released from Google. That looked at a whole new architecture that AI could be built on called the transformer architecture. I won't go into all the details on that, but that's really what kind of started this boom. And you had companies out of it like Anthropic, like OpenAI, that were using this research paper to build early versions of what is now large language models. So there was a website that kind of started to go viral within AI communities back in 2018, I think it was, called Talk to Transformer, which was a very early form of a language model. And that's kind of evolved to what we know now.
Okay. What's a language model?
A language model is basically, as many people have experienced, ChatGPT, it types things out to you. It will give you new text. So it understands and has a comprehension of language. The easiest way to kind of think about how a language model works is it's like incredibly smart predictive text. So it produces a word and then it predicts what the next word is going to be based on all the previous words, based on all its training data, based on what you've told it to do. So it's a very advanced predictive text.
So on a day-to-day basis, as I'm texting or writing an email, and the next word or the next few words come out, that's a very basic AI, isn't it?
Yeah, so what those are mainly based on are recursive-based models. So that's kind of what existed in the world of AI before the transformer architecture. The transformer architecture basically allowed language models to have retention of information and be trained on vast amounts of data, whereas what you get in predictive text is more looking at the past few words that you've written before it. So Transformer allowed it to have a vast amount of memory that it can use to improve the next few words it's going to write and constantly predict it.
Right. Okay. So we've done a bit of an idiot's guide to AI there. So you're working in this French company, is that right?
Yes, yeah, French company. They were all about like self-assessments for recruitment to find out more about your candidates that are joining the team and get an overview of their soft skills. So they were a very soft skill focused company.
Okay. So how did that switch flick to go, right, I'm going to set up an AI company?
So when I left my company before that, so I worked at a company based in Leeds called Force 24. That's what I joined straight out of university. I've worked there for a few years and grown in the company. And the day I handed in my notice, I went to chat with the CEO and told him that I was leaving and what I was going to do. And he was fine with me going. But he said to me, and I'd worked quite closely with him on a number of projects, and he said to me that, Jeremy, this is a great job for you, but sales is not where you're meant to be. You need to be doing what I'm doing and starting up a business. That's where your passion is going to lie, and that's what I know you'll excel at. And I kind of brushed it off at the time. I was like, okay, but this job's paying me really well. I want to go do that. But it just kind of sat with me from that point, and I was getting more and more into learning about how language models work, how Gen AI works, and finding out the fundamentals of that. while working in this new job, and it just kept eating away at me. Like, what could I do here? What could I set up? I think he might be right. I think I'm going to love this. It just got to the point where there was a perfect opportunity to go and build something. And that's when I started working on a tool called Sales Compass, which failed massively, but it was kind of my foyer into setting something up.
Okay. Was that Adam at Force 24 you were talking about?
Yes, Adam Oldford.
Right, okay. We chatted with Adam 5 or 6 episodes ago.
Oh, fantastic.
So there'll be a link in the show notes to I don't think he mentioned you in the interview, but there we go.
I'll have to have a word with him. I think I'm seeing him soon. So.
Okay. You just mentioned their Sales Compass. Was that something you tried to set up on your own?
Yes, so me and my co-founder at the time, Chris, were looking at how we could both get into the AI industry. I've known Chris since I was 13. We first met on the school bus together when we started a new school. We were both massively into video games, and we were both into computer science. At the time in our school, the computer science GCSE didn't exist. It had only just been created a few years prior as a GCSE. So me and him pestered our teacher to bring it into the school, and they eventually did. So we'd kind of worked together on different projects all through our teenage years. We had a YouTube channel together where we made gaming videos. We created a Minecraft server where we managed to earn a couple £1,000 as a 14-year-old. That was fantastic. So we'd worked together on stuff before, and we wanted to look at, okay, what could we do together now that's a bit more serious? So I came up with the idea of Sales Compass. As a sales manager, one of the things that I'd always pushed my sales teams to do was personalize every bit of communication they could. Generic sales emails are generic. No one reads them. No one responds to them. But personalization gets good responses, but takes too much time. So you're constantly in a battle between the sales team and upper management, with the sales team saying, I know this is going to perform higher, but upper management, when the results don't appear straight away, saying, okay, but you could just be sending 300 emails a day. Do that. Hit the numbers. So we looked at how you could hyper-personalize every email based on an individual's LinkedIn profile and their business to sell your tool, your service, whatever you want, really personal to them, and hit that scale at the same time. So that's what we started building. And we learned so much from doing it. It was really interesting, that kind of process of what we think setting up a business is going to be like and what we think it's going to be like architecting this solution to what it actually was.
Okay, so what were the key learnings from that?
There was a lot in the development side of things. Like, we'd worked on different projects before, but never really built something that was designed to scale. So scaling the actual technology became really challenging. That we launched just at the time GPT-4 was released. And GPT-4 was a complete breakthrough in language models. It was so much better than 3.5. So we were desperate to use GPT-4 for all the email generations, but it was too slow. So there was kind of a mix between our customers of people wanting the high quality of GPT-4o, no, just 4 at the time, but not wanting to wait the time it would take to generate that email and the high cost associated with it, and making sure that scaled. It wasn't working well. And we struggled with customer acquisition as well. We were able to generate some initial interest through my contacts and stuff, but as I said, the software wasn't fully built to scale, so we'd start bringing in customers and losing them quite quickly because it wasn't a smooth experience. So yeah, loads of learnings in that on how to build scalable software.
Okay, and apart from the sort of struggle in recruiting and retaining customers, what other learnings were there from the business side of things rather than the development side of things?
So there's a huge lesson in recruitment for us. We brought somebody on that we thought we needed at the time to build stuff, and our recruitment process wasn't good. I'd never hired a developer before. Chris, my co-founder, he's a tech guy that likes to be in the background and build the tech, not on the forefront. So that was me doing a lot of the recruitment. We didn't have much of a process, so we brought somebody in that wasn't particularly fit for what we needed at the time to scale it. So learned a lot about that. We later started working with a guy called Ian, who was ex-IBM, I think he was the CTO of cloud infrastructure and AI at IBM for about 25 years. And then another 7 years at Google. So he completely changed our recruitment process much for the better. So that was really useful, a big learning we had early on. And we started to get in the process of fundraising as well, and learning about your basics in fundraising in the UK, like SEIS, EIS, and how to construct a good pitch. Obviously, my sales background, I was able to talk to people, but selling a product is very different from selling a business and trying to get investment in it. So I learned a lot in that process as well. There was learnings left, right, and center. Like, if I was to go back and do Sales Compass, I would do it totally differently.
Okay, so how long did Sales Compass last?
Sales Compass was created around the same time that we were working on a larger business that Sales Compass would become part of. So we created a business called Neural River that essentially acted as an incubator of AI products. So we would bring in graduates with some development experience behind them, so often AI developers or computer science developers from university, who would then work on their own AI products and spin them out while consulting on some of our own internal products. So Sales Compass became an internal product that people would work on. So we were focused on how we start to spin out those products. And around the time that Sales Compass was getting customers but not really growing is when I came up with the concept of Neural Voice. And we had a lot more promise in Neural Voice and could see it going much bigger than Sales Compass, and I didn't have the time to focus on both. Sales Compass had kind of stagnated, so we decided, okay, we'll close the doors for that for now. We can revisit it at some point if we want to, but Neural Voice holds a lot more promise, and we started going down that route a lot more.
Okay. So you switched horses. Just on I mean, a lot of people don't get the opportunity to proactively close a business. It's either sold or it goes bust or goes into administration, or whatever it might be. What was that like? Because that's quite a unique experience in proactively closing a business out of choice.
It wasn't so much a business close, so we never formed it as a limited company. It was we formed Neural River as a limited company, and Sales Compass was a product of Neural River, with the plan to potentially be spun out into its own independent business further down the line. Neural River still exists. Ian, who I mentioned, ex-Google, ex-IBM, now runs Neural River, and it's starting to thrive. They're starting to get a lot more business and spin out different AI businesses. So that's doing really well now. And then we spun Neural Voice out into its own independent business. So there's never anything to really shut down. It just became a product of Neural River.
Right. So it was just like, we're not going to work on that product anymore. We're just going to mothball it. Right. Okay. So you've mentioned Neural Voice, and obviously we've spoken to one of your employees, if we can call your AI employees. Talk to us about the idea, and then the whole setting up of the business, and then I know you've been out fundraising, and talk us through that. So let's start with the idea. So talk us through the basic idea.
So the basic idea was something that had kind of been in the back of my mind ever since, like, what I spoke about earlier with Cleverbot that I started playing around with when I was about 13. Like, wouldn't this be cool if I could just speak to it and it would speak back to me like a human? And it also came from that love of sci-fi. Like, I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and communicating with C-3PO or other droids in Star Wars felt so real. It felt like C-3PO could be your friend. So it just kind of started as a project of, let's explore this. Let's see how close we can get to realism, and then we'll come up with how it can be a business later. I just want to see if I can make this possible. So we started working on that, and we were able to make the latency quite low, voices somewhat realistic, and we were quite happy with it. So it then became, okay, what can this actually be used for? So the very first thing we made with Neural Voice was a travel agent. So our lead investor in Neural River, he's got 30 years in the travel industry, exited multiple businesses that he set up in the travel sector. So I knew it was one that I could potentially impress him with. And my mum is also a travel agent. So I thought, okay, let's model it after my mum. So I know that sector kind of, and maybe I'll end up putting her out of a job in the meantime doing it, but it'll be fun to build. So that's what we started focusing on to start with. How can we turn this into somebody that can have a conversation with an individual, find out what they're really interested in from a holiday perspective, and build out their ideal itinerary, their ideal destination, just on the information of a language model. And from there, it kind of scaled us, okay, there's so much we can do with this technology here. We can put it into customer service. We can put it into sales. We can put it basically anything where there's a phone or somebody speaking at the end of the line that's a human right now. Neural Voice can start to emulate, and it kind of scaled from that point.
Okay, and I suppose it's a step ahead of the press 1 for this, press 2 for this, press 3 for this.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
so I have such a hatred of being on hold. It annoys me more than anything. Around the time of building, so as we started building Neural Voice, we needed to change our O2 business account. And we needed to actively give them more money. And I called up O2. I was on the phone for over an hour. I'm not exaggerating when I say I was put to 8 different teams, and they didn't solve my problem. And I actively wanted to give this business more money. It was so frustrating. I was like, okay, Neural Voice is a better way. It can just do this, and there's no hold time. You can just have the conversation and get what you need. This technology needs to scale because I do not want to be on another of these calls. So that was kind of the fire that was lit underneath me of, okay, this has value. We need to turn this into something.
Right, and I suppose you've got your sales background, and obviously the frustration of doing that. I suppose that then is the light where you go, right, this is where it fits.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So you've got this idea. It's starting to work.
Yep.
Obviously, with any tech company, you need quite a lot of money.
Yes.
So I know you went out on the angel investment round. So before you talk to us about that, I need to talk to our viewers and listeners about the Leeds Business Podcast Fair Deal. The Leeds Business Podcast Fair Deal has 2 sides to it. My side of the deal is every week I bring you listeners interesting, fascinating, and educational in this week, educational guests for free. And you, listener, have got one thing to do. All I need you to do is recommend this podcast to one other person. That's it. That's all it is. That's the Leeds Business Podcast Fair Deal. Sound like a fair deal, Jeremy?
Sounds like a fair deal to me.
There you go. Jeremy thinks it's a fair deal. Okay, so let's talk about how you go about going out and getting investment.
Sure.
Start from the start.
Yeah, the very start of getting investment in the UK is getting a good understanding of SEIS and EIS, and understanding how that brings both you value as a business and your investors value. So getting my head around that and the mechanics of that at the start was crucial. If you don't understand SEIS, you're not going to have a chance with angel investors. And then next up, of course, is getting that advanced assurance so you can actually get SEIS. John, a quick overview of how SEIS works? Or
Absolutely, because that's going to be the next question. You've mentioned EIS and SEIS, and some of our listeners are going, what the hell is he talking about?
Okay, so SEIS is a scheme that's in place for investors and businesses in the UK. SEIS is £250,000 that you can raise under this scheme. If you're an angel investor and you put your money into a business that has SEIS advanced assurance and they haven't raised £250,000 yet, you can qualify your investment for that. As an angel investor, if you were to put £100,000 in a business with SEIS, you will get 50% of that back in your next tax year. And then further from that, if the business is to fail, what is left of that 50 grand, if that business goes bankrupt, you get a further 40% of that back. So it mitigates the risk as an investor of putting your money into different businesses and allows you to diversify your portfolio more. What's even better about it is if that business is successful and exits, you're able to then get 0% capital gains tax. So as an angel investor, hugely valuable and a far less riskier way to start deploying your capital in early stage businesses, because early stage businesses are inherently very, very risky. So yeah, if you're starting a business, make sure you get advanced assurance on SEIS so you can raise with investors, because most angel investors will be asking straight away, do you have advanced assurance?
Okay, so you've nailed EIS and SEIS. What's the next thing to do?
Start speaking to investors. So start getting yourself to different angel networks. Reach out to anybody, family, friends that might know high net worth individuals. You just need to get yourself out there. To start with, your pitches are probably going to be bad. You need that feedback straight away so you can start refining it more and more. If an investor says no to you, make sure you have another call with them and find out why it's a no. Find out if it's about your pitch that needs refining. Find out if it's something about the business they don't like or they don't believe in. You need to understand why you're getting these no's before you're able to get a yes. So those first few no's are so important. And it's really good to get those no's straight away. If you don't get those no's straight away, you're not going to refine your pitch, and you'll probably be in a worse position when you're doing a larger raise down the line. So getting that instant feedback is super crucial. So we were lucky enough to have two of the Neural River investors come straight on board with Neural Voice for our SEIS round. They believed in what we were building straight away. So we were able to raise some initial funding to get the product built out. From there, we joined a few different angel networks groups and started pitching at different events and started speaking with some VCs as well around, okay, how can we build this round out, go from pre-seed to seed? Now that we've built the basic product, how do we take it to market now? And what does that raise need to look like? But all in all, it's just making sure you've got all of your financial data, your models as good as possible so you can reduce any questions. Make sure your pitch is refined. Make sure the value proposition is clear. Make sure your go-to-market is as clear as possible. And make sure they like you as an individual. Being somebody that they feel like they can speak with and get along with is really important to a lot of angel investors. At least that's what I've been told. I'm not an angel investor.
What were the first things you got wrong and that you had to refine in your angel pitch?
So I think initially one of the things that really didn't help us was a standard pitch you go through a slide deck on and you speak over it. Neural Voice is very much a product you need to experience. It's all well and good being able to talk about it, but people instantly kind of put you in the box of Siri or Alexa or don't quite get it. People's minds open up a lot more as soon as they have their first conversation with Neural Voice. We've seen so many customers and investors, as soon as they have their first conversation with it, their mind goes wild with different ideas of how it can be used, and they get super invested in the product. If they're able to get invested in the product, they're able to get invested in me and the business. And then it's also, once they've done that, trying to refine your pitch enough so you show vision with what their vision for the product is. One of the problems with Neural Voice is it can do so many things, and you can't do everything. You've got to narrow your focus and make sure you're aligned with where your investors are aligned on, or your investors are aligned with your vision for the product. So those were some of the early learnings we had.
Yeah, I mean, has that been difficult? I know what founders are like. They go, "Oh, we can do this, and we could do this, and we could do this, and we could this opportunity." Has that been quite difficult for you to go, right? Actually, yes, it can do 100 things, but we're only going to do 2 or 3 or 4.
Very difficult. I think a good example of that is, so back in June of last year, we ended up going really viral worldwide as one of our investors created a AI character of himself. It had his voice and it had an understanding of him, and he was running to be a politician. He was running in the general election in Brighton and Hove and running on the ballot as AI Steve. So his entire persona was an AI that we had created. And that went ridiculously viral. We were being interviewed on BBC, ITV, CNN, Fox News. But that's not what we sell as a product. It's a really awesome, fun gimmick that gives us a lot of attention. And we were able to drive a lot of traffic to the website and start to convert some customers on it. But at the same time, we don't really sell cloning people and creating individuals. That's not our main market. Doesn't mean we can't do it, but it's not our main market for scale. There's actually a business that has been created now off using Neural Voices technology, so we are a supplier to them, that is more focused on doing that. They're using our underlying technology to do that, and we enable them, but that's not what we're selling to businesses. We're there for that customer support, that sales side, the sales cycle, inbound lead handling, and a number of other areas. But that was also a really great experience at the same time, and I wouldn't change any of that. I loved that month. We got a few death threats as well. That was interesting. Never thought I'd get them.
Wow. So flipping that on the coin, I think you've just alluded to it. What do you see as the core use for Neural Voice as it stands at the moment?
Yeah, so right now we're focused on two key areas. So we're starting to gain a lot of traction in the travel industry at the moment. So as I said, the very first thing we built was a travel agent. That has been refined massively now, and travel businesses are really starting to see the value in it. Not just from a travel agent perspective, but starting in that area because it works kind of nicely as a gimmick for them and a piece of marketing material. Go speak to our fun AI. Woo woo. And then they start to expand in it in other sectors of the business, like customer service, like duty office, like reviews. So travel industry is just a huge industry for us at the moment that we're focusing on and trying to get as many learnings out of it as we can. The other really big focus for us is inbound lead handling. So as a former sales guy, there's a stat that I harp on and on and about, and I said it to my teams and I say it to customers now. If you're able to call a customer back within 5 minutes of them becoming an inbound lead, whether that's requesting a callback, whether that's filling a form on your website, if you call them back within 5 minutes, your chances of converting them are 21 times higher than if you wait half an hour. But teams can't actually
Wow.
manage that in reality because calling back in 5 minutes is really difficult. You're on meetings, you're busy, you've got emails to respond, you've got so much happening. Calling them back straight away can be really challenging unless you've got a big team. Also, you work 9 to 5. A lot of leads come in after hours for many businesses. So that's where Neural Voice really shines. As soon as that lead comes in, we can trigger a call being made to that prospect from Neural Voice that will understand your business. It will understand what that customer's after. It will ask them questions. It will qualify them. And most importantly, it will give them the answers to their questions. If you're becoming an inbound lead, it's usually because you've got more questions you want answered to. And prospects hate it if you pick up the phone and call them and just qualify them and don't help them. So Neural Voice is able to do both, and it's able to then set a meeting in the diary of your sales team so they can have a proper meeting with that individual that is now fully qualified and invested in your brand and product. So that's where we're getting a lot of interest for right now.
Right. I can see that. So I suppose it's handling in hours. It's handling the sort of day-to-day mundane stuff that can be answered really, really easily.
Yep.
And out of hours, it's working as an out of hours sales agent or
Exactly.
customer exec or something like that.
Exactly.
Okay. Let's go back to the angel investment then. So talk us through your experience in terms of successes and failures in getting angel investment.
So we raised a £250,000 SEIS round. So that was our pre-seed round with the idea of just building out the technology to the point where we could deploy it and start bringing customers on. That took us about 9 months to kind of go through a lot of that money in the round as well and actively working on it. So we had one major investor in there that did a huge chunk of that and a number of smaller angels that were putting in between 20 and 30K to make up that total 250. After about 9 months on there, we went to our seed round. So we'd started bringing customers on board. And that's when we started looking more at angel groups as opposed to individuals just from our networks. So we started working with a few different angel groups and having those conversations. And we started speaking with VCs in the north of the UK as well to see if we could create that much larger round. We were looking at VCs with NPIF2, so Northern Powerhouse Fund, to look at, okay, where can we get the best opportunity from to work with a VC while taking in some additional angel money to keep us going while we're raising that much larger round. So that's kind of what the process has been like. What one learning I had was with working with a VC that we were speaking to, we got to a point where it was towards the end of their process and they asked me to create a custom demo for them. And it was similar to an AI Steve demo. And again, as I said, that's not what we sell, but we were so close to kind of the end of it. I just said yes and did it. And that was really stupid of me because it meant they couldn't get the value proposition properly in that final stage. And they didn't understand fully what our value proposition was. I'd clearly not done a good enough job in telling them what our actual market is and what we do as a business for them to misunderstand it and think, okay, let's put this together. I don't really know what was going on in their minds. Maybe they thought, okay, this is just a fun gimmick to show at the final bit of it. But it led to a misunderstanding of our product, of our business, which harmed the deal. So that is a big learning. I need to be more clear in saying no when something isn't right, rather than just being a yes man to get something moving quicker.
Yeah, yeah. I think that that's often the case with entrepreneurs and startups and business owners. You just go yes, 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 yes. We'll do it. Yes, we'll do that, and you end up
whatever you want, I'll go build it.
Yeah. You end up going off track, and you're not working on the core proposition. And yeah, like we said earlier, there are so many different things you could do with this that it's really hard to go no.
Yeah, especially when you're after the money, you're after the revenue. Like, you feel like you need to do whatever you can for it. Yeah, if you just stop and think and stick to your value proposition and stick to your vision, you're way more likely to actually succeed.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I fell foul of that quite a few times as well. So, what does the business look like now? So, you've got the funding. You've now got the real paying clients on board.
Yep. Yeah, we've got paying customers on board. We're in the process of closing some rather large travel customers. Obviously, can't say the names until they're signed on the dotted line. But we're very excited about those deals and hopefully going to manage to achieve those by the end of the month. Our revenue is growing month on month, so we're increasing our monthly recurring, which is a great place to be in. Always helps with a fundraise as well, when you can show, okay, people are actually paying for this product now. It's not just a dream and a vision. People believe in it and are willing to put money in to bring it into their business. So yeah, things are looking positive. Yeah.
Good, excellent. And what do you see as the next challenges sort of coming over the horizon for you?
I think the next big challenge is going to be proper scalability. Right now, we're bringing on enough customers that we can handle, and we can work with them to onboard them, and we can spend the time where it needs to be spent. We'll hit the point where we either need a lot more customer service reps in to support them, or we're going to need to smooth out that process, make onboarding much quicker. It's when you kind of hit that hockey stick moment where the scaling happens really quickly. If you mess that up, you're screwed and you won't scale further. So we need to be in a position where we can get to that hockey stick curve moment and be ready to support those customers however possible. So I think that will be the next big challenge. And that's a great challenge to have. If you get to that moment and that's a challenge that you need to overcome, great challenge to have. You're bringing money in.
Absolutely. Maybe you can get an AI Jeremy to do all the onboarding.
That'd be fantastic. Perfect. I might need to do that.
Okay, now every week we ask our guests to give us a how-to.
Yes.
So Jeremy, tell us what you're going to teach us how to do, and then teach us how to do it.
Yeah, so there was a book I read a few years ago that was recommended to me by my manager at the time at Force 24, so Nick Washburn. It's called Extreme Ownership, and I've kind of lived by the principles of that ever since, especially in creating my own business. So as a very kind of quick overview of what extreme ownership is, it's basically the mindset of, in business, everything that happens, good or bad, is on me as an individual. I own this business. I created this business. Everything that happens in the business is on me. So it's a mindset of that extreme ownership. It completely kind of changed how I lead. It's not about pinning the blame on somebody when it happens. It's about taking responsibility. And when you're able to take that responsibility, you're able to gain control. You stop making excuses and you start moving to make stuff actually happen. So that's kind of what I read the book and I took a lot away from it. It's very easy to blame somebody when something goes wrong. But at the end of the day, when you own the business, if you blame somebody for it, nothing's going to get fixed. And if I'm running this business, it's on me to fix it. So I think a good example when I speak about this that I often look to is, if a deadline's missed, I can't be saying, okay, well, you just didn't do your job properly. I need to analyze it and look at why that deadline was missed. I need to ask myself, did I make the goal clear enough? Did I give them what was needed to achieve that? So I'm owning that problem at that point, and I'm reflecting on what happened in that process that meant the deadline got missed. What could I have done differently? So then it comes with sort of leading with clarity on that as well. So how do you take that ownership and lead with that ownership? If the team isn't delivering, it's on me to make the assumption first that they didn't understand the mission. And if they didn't understand the mission of what needed to be delivered, again, that's on me. So always start with the assumption that you've done something wrong that has caused this issue, rather than assigning that blame somewhere else. And if you start with that assumption, you're able to make much better decisions. So instead of saying something like, we need better customer service, we need to start to look at every customer query needs to get a response within 10 minutes, no exceptions. So you're leading with an example there of what needs to happen. Make sure those guidelines are very clear. So if something is missed, you've made those guidelines as clear as possible so they're not being missed. And then team performance as well. Everything that happens from a performance perspective is on me. The team's successes is my success. The team's failure are also my failures. Everything stops with me. And that's what extreme ownership kind of comes down to. And then it's kind of the next bit is decision-making process, making sure every decision you make in the business is made decisively. Don't hum and haw around stuff. You've got to make a call at the end of the day. If you're seen to not make those decisions decisively, then you get mixed messages from your team. They lose confidence in what you're doing. You need to be very sure about what it is you're doing. So leaders that kind of own everything have a lot more success. You can't constantly wait for the perfect conditions to make a decision. If you're constantly waiting for perfection to make a decision, the perfection's never going to arise. So you've got to make snap decisions. Some of them will be wrong. You're not always going to make the perfect decision, but if you're able to be decisive in your decision, your team will follow you more, and you're more likely to reach success faster because you're not waiting for that perfection to arrive. I think the final bit of all of it is set the example. Like, the team will always do what you do, not what you say at the end of the day. So you want a culture of discipline and work ethic, but you also want a culture of accountability. And if we want that, I have to embody it first. If I can't embody that accountability, no one else is going to do that. And that's when you see companies that have a huge blame game constantly. If they're constantly blaming other people, it's because that starts at the very top. If people see the top person at the top taking accountability for their actions, everyone else starts to take accountability as well. And the final bit is not so much something I took from the book, but something I try to do as well, as often as possible, is if I succeed in something, or I feel like I've done a job well done, and people have helped me in that process, I want them to take all of the credit. I don't care about the credit. That doesn't matter. What matters to me is the results in this business and revenue going up and bringing more employees in and scaling the business. The small, minute bits day to day, I don't care about the credit. If someone's helped me along to get to that point, that credit goes to them. They can write that off as their own success. So that's something I try to do as much as possible as well. It empowers the team more. It makes people want to help more because they know they're going to get the credit in the end and they're going to be able to ride on the back of that. So yeah, that's Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. I hope I did that book enough justice in a few short minutes, but I'm very passionate about the book. I've recommended it to so many people now.
Brilliant. There's some really great leadership lessons in there, and there will be a link in the show notes below to the book. So if anybody wants to buy it, they can do. One final question. Well, two. I've got two final questions for you, Jeremy. The first one is we ask all our guests to give a shout out to another Leeds business. So who are you going to give a shout out to?
WAI. So they're a consultancy based in Leeds that are focused on bringing AI into SMEs in the area or around the country to start making efficiencies within businesses with people that don't have the technical ability or the time to bring in different forms of AI within their business. So I had a great chat with them the other day. They're based here in Leeds, so check them out, and I think you'll love them as much as I do.
Excellent. There'll be a link to them in the show notes as well. So one final question, give you an opportunity to sell the business. So if anybody has got lots and lots of inbound calls and they are interested in talking to Neural Voice, how do they get hold of you?
And so if you go on our website, neural-voice.ai, we have a free trial that anybody can sign up to and start to create their own voice AI agents. We also have demos right on the webpage that you can have a conversation with, like AI Victoria, where you can speak to them. You don't have to leave any details. We really want people to start to experience this technology because, as I said with investors, as soon as they start to have those conversations, their mind goes wild with ideas of how they can use this technology. So we really encourage anybody to just have a conversation with it. We've got lots of different use cases on there, from travel to car salesman to recruiter. lots of different sort of experiences you can have with voice AI.
Brilliant. That's absolutely fantastic, Jeremy. Thank you ever so much indeed. We've had a little bit of an education in AI.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Phil.
I hope that you enjoyed this episode. Make sure you hit the follow button so every new episode gets sent straight to your phone.